Future State of Superman and Metropolis issue 2. I think Matt's the only one who read this, so
Did you not read it?
I had to read Flash, so that just crossed this one off the list.
Did you read it, Connor?
No, I said last week I wasn't going to read it because
Gotcha.
I didn't really like the main story in the first issue. The only thing I really liked from it was the Mr. Miracle bit, and that's not enough to move.
I was vaguely curious how the story was going to wrap up, but not enough because it was a really dense read last time, so I didn't have time. So go on, Matt. Tell us about it. What happened?
So it starts with him and Brain Cells are up on the ship, and Brain Cells has kind of created like a organic area to keep like the city alive, and that he's like conserving it. And then John realizes how much of a mistake this actually was, that he just kind of played into his hands, and that he's going to protect Metropolis, not Brain Cells. And then so they get to fighting, and Brain Cells ends up creating clones of Superman, but from the different eras, which is really cool. So there's 4 of them that he ends up having to fight, and one of them's the Golden Age Superman, and then you have the the next, like the 50s era, because he mentions the Red Scare, and then there's the Superman that died fighting Doomsday, and then the Superman that died in Reborn. So the one that was from Rebirth.
Oh yeah.
And they're all faceless, so they're just like the costumes on a faceless,
Oh, so you've got that one last one without the red trunks.
Yeah. And so they're all fighting. He fights, and Kara wakes up in the fortress with the Helix robots all around, and she has more of a personality change than from the first one, from the first issue, and she kind of comes to terms with like, I not in the right headspace, but she goes off to save John, to help John, not necessarily save. But as John's fighting these versions of his dad, is that he kind of has this realization, like, being Superman's son seems like an easy thing, but you're always going to be in his shadow, no matter, like, and that's not because of Superman, it's because you're Superman's son. Like, just the public perception, and that's his big issue here. The whole reason that he, tried to save Metropolis in this way was it's kind of the opposite of what his dad would do, and because he has to define himself. And he's, come to terms while he's getting his butt kicked, with Brain Cells there. So he gets Brain Cells to charge up the Neurodium, which is that, the synthetic kryptonite, has kind of the same deals.
I'll be honest, I'd forgotten that it was even called Brain Cells in this, and that made me chuckle because I was like, that's just a stupid name.
Yeah, no, it is. But basically, that's that takes out the Superman. But Kara starts flying through space with the basically the enlargement gun that they were using, like the cannon from, well, you don't know, but in action when they shrunk the the Invisible Mafia, right? So she has that, and it ends up getting destroyed. But so she comes in while John's finishing off the whole Brain Cells fight. And I'm trying to remember. It's one of the first things I read this week. But basically, she ends up helping John basically talk Brain Cells into this. And they re-enlarge the city, right? He takes the city, puts it back over there, and realizes that I'm sorry is not going to be enough. So
no shit.
Yeah. And that, so it's, actions, not words. So as, he goes into the city, he starts fixing things. He starts putting stuff back. He's, he's fixing the pipes. He's going through, there's floods, so he starts clearing the water. And then it ends with, him making the commitment that he's Jonathan Kent, the Superman of Metropolis, as the crowd kind of starts to look up at him like he's his dad. So now he's kind of achieved that, I feel like the whole point of the story was him coming to terms with being Superman's son, and that he's not going to ever be his dad, but being his best, he'll get close. And so, it ends with the people looking up at him. So I enjoyed it. It's not like, as I was reading it, I was like, this definitely feels like one of those during like Connor brought up earlier, Convergence. Like there's some cool stuff at play here, but I hope this is not what the Superman books are going to focus on, and I'm pretty sure because this is John and not Clark.
It kind of feels like DC
we're safe.
Doesn't want John to be Superman in a lot of ways, and that this is kind of a showcase of why he shouldn't be in some regards.
Kind of.
I mean, even just ignoring that, the fact that the ongoing writer for both books is in the other Superman book, which has got a completely different style and focus and everything, I feel like you're probably okay. You're safe here.
It doesn't technically contradict this book, the other one.
No.
But it has a lot more heart and understanding of Superman that leaves me hope.
Yeah. So, but no, just this whole thing with him coming to terms, and then Kara apologizing. You know, I kind of skipped over that too. When she shows up with the ray gun, the shrink ray, you know, just like she's like, yeah, that's kind of out of character for me. So I don't know if that was like a mea culpa from the writer being like, yeah, in that first issue she wasn't written right. Let me try to fix it.
Yeah, I felt that a little bit in the issue. So
yeah, so. But just the way it ends, and then it's the John Timms art, which I enjoy his version of John, because it is kind of the fusion of Superman and Connor that we got his Connor throughout Young Justice, so and I just feel like it fits with the action at play here, like him fighting all the different versions of his dad is a real fun sequence. So but yeah, this story's kind of, I don't want to say forgettable, but just, I'm trying to come up with a nicer word than that. It's kind of expendable in that. Is that worse? You know, but I still enjoyed what I read. Like, I'm not upset that I read it. It's just,
I'm glad the art's decent still, because John Timms is doing the spine story in the Infinite Frontier Zero issue.
Yeah, Timms is good. So I'm gonna give this a 7 out of, to rate it, and then I can move on to the Mr. Miracle story, which anticlimactic considering that we got like basically part 3 before we got part 2. So
that's annoying. It's the fact is, when we get to that other Superman Worlds of War book, like maybe I'll still read Mr. Miracle, but part of me feels like, I don't know, I've only read parts 1 and 3. I feel weird reading part 4 now that I've skipped part 2.
I'll probably still read it because I've already seen. I already read 3 and enjoyed 3. I might as well read 4. That's the one that follows on directly. 2, 2's clearly the most skippable part.
Because you skipped it and didn't notice.
Exactly.
This is Brandon Easton and Valentine Delandro on art. And it continues Shiloh Norman trying to escape through Metropolis. His mother box is, depleting its energy. He does some fun tricks where, like, he ends up initiating, what's it called? I'm trying to find it. A light pulse, which ends up scattering, like, his image across a spectrum, almost like, a light, like a sun ray through a raindrop. So it confuses these robots that he's been fighting. And he ends up coming across this guy that we see early on in the book that's wearing, like a bandana and a hat, and telling him, hey, I'm glad you're here. Because we see that this dude is painting Superman S's all over the city. And so he talks to him about, all the weird stuff that's going on here. Robots show up and start knocking him around. He goes through and realizes, like, if he uses the rest of his power in the mother box, he might be able to break through this barrier, but then it's spent. So he decides he's going to try it anyways. And he takes out all the robots, doesn't pierce the shield though. But when they ask he asks the mother box what the material is that's surrounding the city, it responds that it's Kryptonian. And as that comes through, he gets boom tubed out, which I'm assuming what leads to Warworld in part, whatever the next one is in
But
part
it's
3.
really been that difficult. to put part 2 in Worlds of War issue 1 and then part 3
No.
in Superman and Metropolis issue 2?
My only assumption is they wanted to keep these parts that are set in Metropolis in the Metropolis book, and the ones that are set on Warworld in the Warworld book.
Right.
Because it's like they're avert to doing part 1 of a backup in one book and then part 2 of a backup in another book, because they're doing it right away with Superman in action when we get.
I mean, even this, they're doing it part 1 and part 3 in a different book.
Yeah. So I just, it's a weird choice. It's weird that you can buy the book, get part 3, and go, oh shit, I shouldn't read this yet because part 2 is not out yet.
For another 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it was at the time. Yeah.
So he gets boom tubed out, and then turns out the guy that was spray painting is Jimmy Olsen, and he's the S is watching. So this one, the art is great. I mean, just like last time, there's like when he splits his image with the light, it looks really cool. Like it's very, because of the way that it's colored, it gave me Mr. Miracle, Tom King, Garrett's vibes, just with the way that it's colored and drawn. You have the thick lines here that make it, different than the Garrett stuff. But the story, I guess, is just okay. Like, again, I don't think not knowing him ending up in War World would change this, because it's just, him fighting robots and then trying to get out of the bubble. And then, okay, the robots caught up with me. So it's just very repetitive. So I'll give this one a 6. Which leads to the Guardian story, which is by Sean Lewis and Coley Hamner, which I always want to say Hammer, but the M
that's all right.
N.
Pete usually does.
Gotcha. But yeah, so
I'll say Hammer if I want to say Hammer. All right.
It's not his name. He doesn't like it.
So, anyways, Guardian ends up in the West River, south of Metropolis University. And the what's her name? Honest. Let me find it. I think it's Honest.
I'll be honest. This was the least memorable part of that first issue, because everything else you've spoken about so far, I've at least followed along with. I'm like, okay, I remember pretty well what everything was. This Guardian story, I remember reading it. I don't remember what happened at all in that first issue.
So I remember going into this one, I didn't refresh. I remembered that the Honest Mary had Jimmy on top of the globe, right? And then on the top of the Daily Planet.
You remember more than me, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and that she was going to basically execute him live on Twitch or whatever. And so Guardian ended up in the river. He gets saved by this group of people, and they give him his stuff, and you find out that they're all from different boroughs of Metropolis, and they've come together to try to figure out how to fix the city while they're in, the bubble still, and that, each of them bring their own different expertise. So, one of them knows that the firehouse and Baker line has nets, so they could surround the building, and then one of the other guys says that the school science lab was working on a project with Star Labs. We got a climbing pack, which ends up being like 2 Doc Ock arms, that allow Guardian to get up there when he needs to. And then Suicide Slum has a police outpost. One of the people brings up that they can send the emergency signals, and there's a communication studio in Hell's Gate, so they can get the message out and whatnot. So Guardian suits up with the people of Metropolis, and people of Metropolis have gathered around the building, to witness what's going to happen with Jimmy Olsen. But Guardian climbs up there with the climbing pack, ends up getting up there and just knocking the shit out of Honest Mary, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because he doesn't even hesitate. It's almost like Nick Cage in the bear suit in Wicker Man, just running up. And
not the reference I was expecting today.
No. So she goes to take Jimmy out, knocks him out of his chair. Guardian leaps while he's still anchored. Of course, saves him, but she blows up the Daily Planet globe and gets away. But, the people of Metropolis have come together, and that's the whole point of each 4 of those from the different areas, and they end up finally catching her, and Guardian comes and arrests her. And then right as this starts to resolve, they're like, okay, well, we'll start trying to get back to normal as best as we can. And Jimmy starts, pie shakes for everybody. And this is not how bad this issue was, but this is what stuck out the most, was this little interaction between Guardian and Jimmy where Guardian's like, pie shakes. He's like, yeah, I invented them. He put an entire pie into the blender. And it's like the most Jimmy Olsen that he's been in these issues, kind of the Jimmy that I got used to in the Maxi series, with like kind of the non sequiturs. But as they're resolving everything, that's where John comes through, and it shows a different angle of him saying that he owes them an apology, and the people of Metropolis who are all gathered already, start to celebrate that Superman's back. I'll give this one a 6 as well, just because like Connor brought it. It's not that memorable, and I had to definitely go through the issue again to remember what exactly had happened. Art's fine. Hamner's art tends to be okay, but it's a little bit better when it's more like street level, like his question stuff that he had done with Rucka during Convergence, weirdly, was like some of my favorite I've seen from Cully Hamner. So so this book as a whole, 7 and 2 6s. I'll give it a 6.5.